Hi, everybody. This is Shivoso Phoenix, and I'm with my colleague and really good friend, Phina Kemper. And we're here doing our bi-weekly astrological and intuitive energy reports that we love to share with you all. And for those of you who haven't been here before, I'd like to invite Phina to, why are we here? How did we get going on this? What's this all about? So here's Phina.
Well, that's actually a really nice story. Is that we started noticing that when I would tell you about the energies that I picked up intuitively, that it would totally correspond with what you read in the charts. And then we felt like, hey, why don't we do a reading for people and bring it out there so people can benefit from it? Because when you have a little bit of an insight of what the energies are going to bring, then you can bring that into your own life, already knowing just a little bit how to surf the waves. So we are sharing this with you, yeah, for your benefit. So also would be very nice to hear back from you how it resonated and how it corresponded. So, what we are going to do, I'm going to share with you first what I picked up in the energy, and then Shivoso, he's going to share with you what the astrological charts are saying, because he's a human design reader and also an astrology reader. And for me, I do the intuitive reading and energy work. So, we're a good team. We're good friends, and we are always having fun with doing these sharings. So I will start first with the intuitive energies that I picked up. The first one is looking into our patterning. I also shared that last time, and I feel that it is still present in the energy right now to in situations, whether they are positive or negative. Every situation is an opportunity for learning, for growth, to see what patterns we are holding, and maybe to see what patterns arise in the other. And it's really nice if you can have good conversations, open conversations with your friends, to look into this. The more we share openly, honestly, the more we can, yeah, really look into it and reflect each other and also with ourselves. Because the next one is looking into the mirror, taking a good look. And I feel that has been emphasized to me, to take a good look at ourselves. Like, what is there that we can really, or that we really need to address in ourselves, because this time is so important for growth. There's a lot going on in the world, and the more we can take a look inside and see what we can heal, yeah, that is beautiful. It comes from the inside out. So to sit yourself down and to see, hey, what patterns are there in me, and really be upfront with yourself to see where you what you can work with. And if you don't know which steps to take on working with that, you can always reach out to a professional to take a look with you on how you can do that. So that is a really important one. And then the next one is an energetic one, which is freeing up the crown chakra. Now, in the last reading, we were talking for the women to connect to the womb space, which is also a pretty big and important energetical point. And this time, we are moving our attention to the crown chakra. And at this time, I received that it is really important for us to clear that out energetically. If that is blocked, your communication with your higher self or your soul, is also less clear. Everyone, also you, is able to connect to your soul and to communicate with it. It is, it takes practice, but also it takes sometimes a clearing out energetically. So I decided to, in the upcoming days, to put out a free meditation to clear out the energy on the crown chakra. You can find it on my channel. And to help you with this, and all you have to do is sit down in meditation with me, and then to um, yeah, to let me help you move through it. So I'm going to do that in a couple of days. And the last one I'm going to share with you is making a shift in energy. With working with all the patterns, a lot of old energy can arise, and it can be very tempting to stay stuck in old stories and old ways. We have a couple of layers on where we can shift. We can shift on the level of mindset, we can shift on an emotional level, and we can shift on an energetical level. And the suggestion that I got was to sit down in meditation and to connect to a higher frequency of energy. And from there, um, your emotions, they can also make a shift, and that will also make a shift in your physical body. So sometimes we work from the physical on up, and now I was receiving the message to work from the energetical level to the emotional and to the physical on down. So this is what I received for you intuitively, and now I'm very curious, as always, to hear you, Shiv, and to find out how it corresponds with the astrology report. So I'm handing it over to you.
Cool. Awesome. Wow. Yeah, that was so weirdly resonant. Let me just, before I get into the minute by minute, day by day astrology, let me just point out that right now we have Mars conjunct the sun. That is our sort of assertive energy is blending with ourselves. And the way I can see that now, the way you express it, is that's our opportunity to show courage, to have the courage to do the inner work, because that inner examination of our patterns takes a lot of courage. It's kind of like, it's super humbling, it's confronting, because our patterns are not something that we only see the results of it in our lives. We don't actually see the patterns. We see what happens when things happen. It's the unconscious. It's sort of the deep stuff moving through us, which is Pluto, right? Um, and also you were talking about sitting down in meditation and reaching for that higher self. And at the same time, during this period of time between the new moon and the full moon, we have Neptune, which is our higher selves, trining in this really beautiful way to that sun, moon, the moon, Mars, sun configuration that's going on, right? So that courage and that higher, it's all heading to the sun, ourself. And the sun ourself is getting hit by the moon and by Mars. So it's a lot of like felt sense of the self being encouraged to look to the higher self. Now there's a shadow side to all that, which is I'll get into, but ultimately, if we make the effort to reach for our higher self, if we reach for the information from a higher place and ask for it to be pure and pay attention to what comes through, is it rooted in fear, or is it rooted in the expansion? Is it rooted in the connection? Is it really God speaking, or is it your fears? And that's really the differentiation, because our fears are pretty big these days, So anyway, that was really, really cool, because I would suggest, that during the next 2 weeks at some point, especially, we'll get to that on the 22nd or so, is a good day to do these deep meditations and these askings, because that's just going to set the tone for what we're going to be going through for the next, I can't put an end to it. It's weeks, months, years, decades of our lives are being kind of crystallized, seed crystalled now. on some really subtle level. So um, basically, we start with the new moon on the 13th, and it's in Scorpio. And so it's got that scorpionic kind of heaviness and intensity to it. And Mars and the sun and the moon all land at 20 or so degrees of 21 degrees of Scorpio, directly opposite Uranus. Uranus is the planet of radical change, innovation, sudden left turns, accidents, things out of the blue, which can, obviously have both a shadow and a light side. It could be something really exciting and innovative, unique, and it could be something like, oh shit, something really bad happened. And it a lot of it has to do with kind of how you're able to relax and go with it, rather than, okay, here comes lemonade, rather than, lemons. And that's a huge attitude that Uranus is asking us to go through. We've been through a big Uranus period, and now this is kind of not the culmination, because it never goes away, but we've really been in this opposition with Uranus. And so now it's Mars, our assertiveness, aggressiveness, our courage, and our kind of egoic, got it my way or the highway, plus the self, the sun, and the moon, our feelings. So there's an opportunity there for either like overconfidence, or no, what should I say? Like self-righteousness. Like, I know what the fuck's going on, and it's got to be my way. I'm going to do this. Get out of my way. I will hurt you if you don't get out of my way. Or it can be self-confident actions. It can be that self-confidence in the connecting to your higher self, to noticing the whole system and what benefits all and not just the self. And that's the higher octave of what Mars can do. It's like, if you're going to go into battle with somebody or something, it better be for a higher purpose and not just to get what you want and get what you need. And so those are the two vibrations that kind of come up around this new moon, right? So, and it's also trine Neptune. So it has the opportunity to be inspired by our highest selves, that all the actions that Mars pushes for can be our higher selves, or it can be in our shadowy side, delusional, completely wrong-headed. And that's where you get that kind of self-righteous, sort of like, I'm going to do it my way. And then boom, it turns out that causes way more harm and nobody wins, right? So there's this opportunity to kind of get into to bring our best selves, is to look for a win-win and use that Martian energy to lean into and work towards a win-win for everyone, so that it's like there's boundaries, you're strong, but you're not violent, and you're not so damn sure of yourself that you can't take in some new information and make the adjustment, or ask for help from your higher sources. So that's kind of the new moon, and that'll go on for a couple of weeks. It actually, those configurations don't change that much over the next week. They really do kind of like stick around, because Mars and the sun are traveling along together throughout this whole period. They're going very close to the same speed. So they conjunct on the new moon, and then they kind of just travel along together for the next couple of weeks, keeping that self and assertiveness, aka also aggressiveness, floating along. So we may feel really confident. We could also just be a little bit overdoing it. So let's just be really aware that we need to be working towards that win-win over the next couple of weeks. What else starts to happen? Well, by the time we get to the 22nd, we have Venus, which is our values and the things that we really feel are important to us. And they're in an opposition with the healer, Chiron, the healer mentor, Chiron. So our original wound can be kind of coming up, but it's this, because of the opposition and the other configurations going on, we kind of have this opportunity to be the healer or to heal ourselves. Yes, some of these old wounds and maybe even our core wounds might come up or be kind of exposed, but it's kind of like, opening the wound so you can get some air to it at the worst. at the best, we're actually moving really actively towards healing ourselves or the others around us. We can be the mentor or healer for others, or we can do it for ourselves, and or because anybody who's ever done any healing work, especially energetic healing work, knows that it's like you're healing yourself at the same time that you're doing the healing work. It's a closed system, right? It's not just doing something to someone. So that opposition that happens on the 22nd is kind of a nice opportunity. 22nd is a big day because at the same time, Pluto is sitting at the head of an arrow that's like this. It's a two sextiles and a trine with Pluto right at the point. And it's the sextiles, which are really harmonic, positive aspects. They kind of blend things easily together. One sextile is going to the Mars and Sun conjunction, and the other sextile is going to Neptune. And then there's a trine across the bottom between Neptune and that Mars moon. So it's a fairly brief moment when all of that lines up on the 22nd, because the moon will come around and actually conjunct Neptune and trigger it. But what's really interesting is that in that configuration is a sextile between Neptune and Pluto, two big, slow-moving planets, generational planets that they've been dancing in the sextile and influencing each other strongly since 1946, in and out. And they go on until 2036, I believe, 33. I mean, it's our time. And what's going to happen is it's going to become, they dance closer and farther from each other as they go along into a perfect sextile. So it's not anywhere near a perfect sextile right now, but it's in orb. It's an influence that's kind of rumbling underneath. And if you look at the energies of Neptune and Pluto, you see Pluto is transformation through destruction and rebuilding, rebirth. And Neptune is our highest selves, also illusions and kind of the edge of everything. It's the ideal, it's the infinite. And so it's this sort of generational, civilizational change that's been really going on since the 1940s. We're talking about the end of World War II and the opportunities that were there to create a better world that were missed. And now we're suffering some of the consequences of that. Russia, these kind of things, right? So we're seeing that it's going, and it goes on, and there's a lot to say about that, but it's sort of like on the 22nd, there's a little moment when a little window opens when you could maybe, especially if you're like clairvoyant or prognosticator, some sort of being able to see into the future, you can feel a hint of what's coming. And it's just going to be a hint. It's just a seed. Nothing's deterministic about this. It's really about, change is going to come, and it's coming, and we can feel it maybe on that 22nd. So it's a really good day to do some deep meditation about what you need to hear, what you need to be holding for this period of time as we go through these changes. That's kind of the epicness of this period, is like, oh, there's a little opportunity to see and feel what's coming and recognize we're part of a big wave of something, and that we're contributing. Everything we do, from the smallest little action to the thoughts, feelings, to the big things we do, is all contributing to the overall outcome, to the world we're going to live in. And so that's kind of an interesting day right then, for sure. Finally, as we go around, the moon keeps moving on, and once it finishes with Neptune, it'll spend the next 4 days hitting both, going kind of like landing and passing through Chiron retrograde, the healer. So it kind of lights that up. And then the north node of the moon, which is it's our dharma, it's our destiny, it's our fate, it's sort of the purpose of our lives, right? It's the indicator of what that is. And so it's going to hit that for the collective. So there's a big destiny thing kind of once again happening. Then it hits Jupiter, which is also retrograde. And then just before it gets to the full moon, it hits Neptune. It hits Uranus. So Jupiter's going to like light up, a little bit good luck maybe that day, a little bit a good mood and things like that. But it's Jupiter retrograde. It's still kind of just sitting in one spot. So it's going to kind of light up the energies we've been feeling around those expansive energies. Each one of these planets are all retrograde, and they're all basically sitting really close to the same degree for months as they stop and then move forward. So Jupiter doesn't get going forward until the end of the year, December 31st. So it's basically slowing down already, but it's going to get to 5 degrees of Taurus and then turn back around, and it's at like 9 right now. So anyway, we're going to have some nice little activities as we get to the end of that period just before the full moon. And you know what I like about this period is like it is a little less jangly than what we've been experiencing for the last 6 weeks. It is a little bit of light, a little sparklier. Not that we're done with anything or that we're getting a free pass. It's more like, oh, it's starting to work now. If we've been responsible for what we're supposed to be responsible for, if we've been showing up and we haven't gone into the victim mode, we will see progress happening for sure. And so, yeah, I have a couple of 2-year-olds here. I don't know if you all can hear this, but it's pretty fun. Anyway, so we're actually heading in, this is a nice little, I don't want to say relief, but there is a feeling of like positiveness here in the next couple of weeks. I'm already feeling it. Things feel like, okay, yeah, I crossed a few things off my list. I crossed a few lines, I crossed a few borders, and now I can look back and say, okay, that's finishing up and that's finishing up. So I don't know how it's going to land for all of you. It's very much dependent on your own personal charts and where you're at in your journey. So yeah, that's kind of the astrology, and we'll do another one here coming up at the on the 27th when the full moon comes back around. So I can't wait to hear what Phina has to say about the next couple of weeks after this. It's an epic time, Phina. It's just really kind of big stuff. But I feel like, okay, we did some of the hardest in the last 6 weeks, and we get a little easing back of the throttle on that jangly, over amped energy. We just got to be careful to not overinflate with that Mars and Sun conjunction and get ourselves into a jam where we're in a war, frankly, whether it's small or big. And you know what we're all talking about. So
Beautiful. And you also made me remind one more point was that um yeah, you already said it so beautifully, but to when you are finding yourself in communication with someone else and you really want to express your truth, to make it come from authenticity and
mhm.
from love, and to, even if you feel anger, to express like, hey, I feel anger, and it can be there, but that Martian energy that you
Right?
were talking about, yeah, I also came across that. So it's beautiful that you pointed that out, and it is a surprise every 2 weeks what is going to come up in the next reading. So I would say watch again,
Yeah.
watch again the next time. Yeah,
Yeah. I
and
wanted to
I
say
hope
that,
you.
there's all the emotions, anger included, have two different aspects or expressions. And one is responsible anger. And then there's
Mm,
irresponsible anger. And that's what we're really talking about, is to always opt for responsible anger. It gets things done, and it creates boundaries that are necessary, and it's a good thing. Anger is not something we want to get rid of, or run away from. It's like, oh no, it's our courage. It's our ability to stand up to the dragon, and even to stand up to
mm,
our own worst selves, our most immature selves. It's this courage to be able to hold our, almost like that, the masculine nurturing of holding the scared parts of ourselves. I got this. You're going to be okay. The monsters under the bed aren't going to get you. I got you. So there's a kind of like nurturing bit there that Mars can show. It's not afraid. It's just not afraid, so it can share courage as well. Encourage. I love that word. Encourage. right? So let's encourage each other this with all this juicy, yummy, like expansive energy we've got going on. And I also want to encourage people to celebrate what you just went through and what you've accomplished in the last 6 weeks, to really count your blessings of like, well, yeah, actually I made it. I'm still here and I still got things to do, but yeah, some things are finally being dealt with. And that took courage, and you've been amazing to do it. So I just wanted to drop that at the very end.
That is really beautiful as an acknowledgement to celebrate to celebrate yourself and each other. Um, yeah, it's beautiful to acknowledge that because it also supplies you with power to move ahead and to be a bit less critical of yourself. And with the anger, I felt it is pretty interesting also to look at how are you going to deal with the anger when it comes up. You know, what is healthy anger and what is unhealthy anger? Like, can you notice the difference inside between the two? That for me personally, it feels like, okay, when I'm angry and it feels healthy, then I can state myself and I can vocalize it, and then it keeps it balanced, and then I can still hear the other. But when there's maybe an old wounded part coming in, it feels a little bit more grungy, you know, around the stomach, and like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you want to. um, yeah, it points more towards aggression, I would say. So it's really interesting that when you notice that inside yourself, to see what you're going to do with that, because a lot of people in the world, they also move towards aggression, like they punch each other in the face or whatnot. For sure we are not promoting that. I feel that is not the way to go. So there are uh, nice ways to express that. You know, go exercise, punch a punching bag, shout. You know, take yourself to the beach, to the woods, shout it out, stomp your feet on the ground, really express it. Put some Viking music on, and for the people that are watching that are Dutch and that are living up north, there's a beautiful ceremony next Friday. I wasn't even going to promote this, but I'm gonna say it. Not next Friday, but next Saturday, up in the north in Friesland in Blesdijken. And we are going to host a beautiful ceremony there, guided by a beautiful man called Wout van Eyck, and he's going to help us release that. So, you know, if you're living here, then you're also welcome to join in on that. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to work with that as well.
That's
Also,
awesome.
not to
I'm
take it
really
too
glad it.
seriously. Yeah,
Yeah, you need to
it is.
practice it. You know, it's like there is a schadenfreude of like expressing dirty anger, you know,
Mm.
violence and things. And it's, you know, it's a self-perpetuating thing. We all know that wounded people wound people and all that kind of stuff. But, um, you know, when you practice expressing it out, then at some point you can mature into managing it often. And that's when it really
Mm.
becomes super productive. It's like what gets things done, you know, and things that we don't want to do or that are difficult, things we're afraid of doing. All of that is in the purview of anger to solve, to resolve. That's why evolution gave us anger. It's not just some random, you know, bad thing that we're not supposed to express, but it is commonly, you know, misexpressed in violence or words, you know, trying to hold a boundary that wasn't held when we were young. And so, you know, we overdo it. And that's just the human thing. It's like, I'm not trying to put myself above anybody. I have my anger fits too, but um, practicing, like you were saying, doing that workshop, something like that, where you actually get a chance to go, okay, what's it like when I really rage, when I really let loose? How does that
Mm.
feel? And if I do it in some neutral way that doesn't do any harm, how does that feel? And then can I address the actual issue? Is it something in the past that there's nothing you can do about and you just have to let go? Or is it something in your present that you can say, I need to change this. We are going to change this, or there will be consequences, not violence, but hey, shit happens, I won't be here anymore, or whatever. We have a boundary and a consequence. And that's the right use of anger. Get things done. So I think that workshop sounds awesome. I wish I was in the
Yeah.
Netherlands. I wish I could just
I
jet
want you
over
there,
and
Chief.
do it
I
for
want you
sure.
to come over and to do
Yeah.
it with us. That would be super fun.
Someday for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I want you here this summer.
Yeah,
So
it's coming. You guys are going to see us in the same room, which will be really interesting after 4 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so looking forward. And I would love to add something to that, is
Hmm.
that with the working of energetics, when we are talking about the healthy expression of anger, and the aggressive way, is that there's also a difference with energy, because the moment you are just expressing, vocalizing, and using it as your power, it stays inside of the body and it ups your spine, and you
Hmm.
raise your chest and you can come forward. But the moment that it comes more from an aggressive place, it comes from the belly. And then what people often do not know is that it shoots out into the energetical field of another person. And that is also how we hurt each other, because by shooting it out, we also make a connection to the other person's energetical field. And when they have maybe the same wounding, you get it reciprocated.
Yep.
So then,
They,
boom, it
they just
gets
like
jolted.
instant, you generate
You
anger in the
lock
other
in.
person, and then you've got two angry
Exactly.
people. You're no longer communicating. You're fully limbic, and rage
Yep.
happens. It happens all the time. And to be able
Yeah.
to like bring it up and express it properly, or to be so zen that you can kind of like just channel the anger into an extremely calm place, like a samurai.
Ooh, that's mastery.
Yeah, mastery, bushido, right,
Wow.
is to never allow yourself to strike in anger.
Yeah.
So that
And
Japanese
and
samurai.
we are also practicing that, guys. It's really important. Like we are not trying to be the teacher's teacher here, but
No man, super
um
humble, right?
yeah. Some humility is there, but we are also experiencing working with it. So
And a lot of us,
we're on a
myself
journey.
included, have a hard time expressing anger because we
Mm,
don't let ourselves be violent and we don't allow it out. We
mhm,
think it's bad, and we've been trained to think it's bad. So
yeah.
it ends up sort of imploding, and we become
Mm,
frustrated, anxious, and depressed, feel
mhm.
helpless,
Oh.
right? So the right use of anger is really healing for those of us who are not fighters and battlers and hitters and screamers and all of the other things that we don't really like to see, but are just as toxic in some ways, as turning it
Mhm.
inward on yourself and not being able to have a boundary and not being able to
Yeah.
say no and say no, it
Ah,
has to be this way.
that's what I wanted to add as well, is that you were talking about this boundary, and that as a child that your boundary was crossed, and that's why the anger is there. As a child, we do not have the power to do that, because we're looking up to adults. Like
Yeah,
we
we're
think that
dinky.
adults
Yeah.
know it all, and
And we're small and
that
not as strong. So, and we often get dominated, told what to do, and squashed down. So anger is,
Mm,
if you've ever lived with a 2-year-old, how they just absolutely go bananas when you put a boundary on them. They're like, no,
mm.
I want what I want when I want it, depending
Kick,
on the kid.
scream, shout.
Yeah, yeah, they just go crazy, and they learn to moderate it. They realize, oh, there are like actual natural consequences. It's not like somebody's being mean to you. It's like, no, you can't run out in the street. That's just not going to happen, no matter how much you fight and scream. But there's other
Mm,
times when we're children and we're truly oppressed, not allowed to feel our feelings, not allowed to do our natural explorations. And so there's a lot of frustration there that can show up. And we often are hurt. A lot of people, so too many people are really hurt, physically abused. And that just comes through. It's like It's a generational thing that we need to break, that we're trying to break. We're
Mm.
working on it. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's good to
and then
talk about anger
also,
today because of that Mars and Sun together, they travel along. We're gonna get to, it's kind of the subject of the month. Hmm?
yeah.
Right? I'm pretty frustrated with the way things are, that's for sure,
Mm.
and ready for things to change for the better and all of that. So uh yeah, I'm trying to channel it into positive action, you know, doing self-care like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and making plans, and actually taking action on those plans, like implementing things. So it's a really good time to get going. Um, the other thing I didn't mention was Saturn's direct. So that's helping. It's like helping us get things going, right? More next week.
Yeah, and also to take, now that we are adults, to take responsibility for our patterns
For
and our
sure.
anger.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like
Adulting.
that's a wrap.
Yep. I think that's enough for everybody. I really
Yeah.
appreciate anybody who listened through the whole thing, and please reach out to us for any personal readings, because we love to do those and can certainly, fill in the blanks for you personally, both astrologically and energetically. And there's contact info at the bottom down there. And also look for my weekly posts on the quarter moons and the full moons and the new moons, where I write out all this stuff. And so you can get all the details that I can think of thrown into a post. Um, all right. Yeah. We'll see y'all in a couple of weeks, if not sooner.
Yeah, see ya.
All right. Ciao.
Ciao.